And they need to be able to do it the way God is calling them to do it, and with the gifts and abilities that God has given them. And it will be with a lot more technology, and it will be with a lot different style, and it'll be in blue jeans and a golf shirt rather than in a suit and tie, and it'll look totally different. Mm-hmm. But that's the beautiful thing about it, is that it can look totally different and still be the church.
That's right. Lights. So bright. Are you ready? Let's go. Let's make this music flow. Let's take it to another level. Let's show the whole world what they all need to know. Christ is alive and he's coming back for you. This is the sound of a hurricane. Representing God, so representing no other name. The sound that is passing you by. Heaven-bound parade with our hands in the sky.
Welcome. I'm Craig Young, and this is the Going Home Show, a place where we look at people, families, ministries, and churches, and see where God is moving through his people.
And it actually used to be a campus nightclub. So just the atmosphere was alive, and it was not churchy at all. So it broke down a lot of barriers, and it was right beside the pub. So you get, our music's playing, you get all kinds of people poking their head in.
My life verse has kind of been, God has not given me authority to tear you down, but to build you up.
Okay, Going Home Show is going to be good. That's right. Pastor Dave, Pastor Al, thank you. It's so great to have family in ministry. And it hasn't always been that way, but we're gonna have some fun just talking about your journeys and your stories and ministry and what God's doing. So first off, how long have you been, Al? How long have you been in ministry over at Colwood Pentecostal?
24 years ago we came, and just wrapping up 24 years.
Wow.
So it has gone by very quickly.
Yes.
It doesn't seem like that long.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's a very good.
Maybe the church thinks it's longer than that, but for me it doesn't seem that long.
Yeah. What a blessing.
Yeah.
And then you joined on how long ago?
Well, there was a bit of a transition time, but since I started full-time as the assistant pastor, it's been about 2.5 years.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And how was that sort of coming on board, knowing your dad's pastoring the church? Was that like a first, of course, I'm going to go pastor with dad. That makes sense. So.
Yeah, well, it was an interesting transition time where God was leading me out of another ministry, and the timing was really God ordered there. But we had worked together on some stuff in the past. I had interned at the church a couple of summers, and we had always done ministry together in some capacity. So we knew that worked, and so we knew what it would be like. And for some people, working with their dad is the worst idea ever, but it really does work pretty well for us.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Dave, you were mentioning before about ministry. What type of ministry? Where were you at?
Yeah, before I started at Colwood, I was running a ministry on campus at UVic called Synagogue. It's a ministry myself and many people from Colwood actually planted years before. So I was there for about 4.5 years, and we basically had a campus church for students. And that was just an amazing time of seeing God do miracles as far as provision and doors opening and just favor on campus, and having the opportunity to walk students through their relationship with Jesus, see kids get saved, and in fact, the guy who's running it right now, Addison Lacasse, he got saved. There was a lot of stuff involved, but we prayed for him when he was a non-Christian, and he comes back after Christmas break and says, "Hey, I'm a Christian," and he just dives right in, and a couple years later, he's running the thing. Wow. So. If
that's discipleship.
If nothing else, God was able to do that through me before I left, and now it's in good hands.
Cool. So I have to back up.
Okay.
Because you said, you know, a bunch of you from Colwood came together and planned. Like, where did that come? Where did that passion come from? Were you a student at university?
I was a student at UVic, and it was out of a transition from UVic that God was calling me into ministry. So I went from UVic to Summit Pacific College to get my ministry training, and I just felt. Growing up, I always wanted to be at university, and but I was really ignoring God in that whole decision-making process, and He was leading me to Bible school. But He gave it back when I was finished school. He gave me the opportunity to minister, to not just be a student, but to minister to students. Yeah. And so there was that whole process of Him kind of taking it away and then giving it back in a much greater capacity where I could serve and bless in that way.
I didn't grow up here, and so for me, Victoria was a new city to come to. The church looks radically different now than it did 24 years ago. When I first came, we had a part-time secretary and myself and about 140 people.
Yeah.
Now we have about 10 people on staff, either full or part-time, and we have 2 administrative girls in the office, and we have a preschool, and we have about 500 people on Sunday.
Wow.
And so it's a lot different now than it was then. There's some things that are still very much alike. Some of the character of the church, some of the style of the church is still very much alike what it was then, but it has grown significantly since then.
I hear like a lot of churches, and you read the books on like church growth and what have you, but that 140 mark seems to be you go to a different stage.
It is.
And so what was that like with that transition?
It's an uncomfortable stage for some people, because you go from sort of a single cell where you know everybody to where you know the people that sit around you. And you no longer know everybody in the church, and that was uncomfortable for some people. I had someone say, I don't want the church to grow because then I won't know everybody.
That's right.
And my thought is, you don't have to know everybody, you just have to know some people, and have your circle of people that you connect with and reach out from. And so that's been an interesting transition for some people. It's been hard. Some people have said to us, I want a smaller church, and so they've gone to another church. Other people come and they say, we love the bigger church. So it works both ways.
Yeah, there's bigger and smaller churches in the community, so that's...
And they're all valuable, and they all serve a role, and we can look in our community and sort of identify some of the different roles that the different churches serve because of different size.
Great. So, Sinago, birthed on campus. What was that like with working with the university, and how were you accepted, that type of thing?
Yeah, at first, we had no idea if we were going to be able to do what we felt God was calling us to do, except for the fact that God was calling us to do it, so we knew He'd make a way, right? And so we're looking at where we can find space, how we can meet, how we can reach out to students, and we actually found space in a room on campus called Vertigo, right in the middle of campus in the Student Union building, and it actually used to be a campus nightclub. So just the atmosphere was alive, and it was not churchy at all, so it broke down a lot of barriers, and it was right beside the pub. So you get, I mean, our music's playing, you get all kinds of people poking their head in, inebriated or not, right? I think there was a couple making out in the back at one time, and that's cool. They're hearing the gospel in some way or another, right? But I just remember, I think there was just one kind of key moment that really propelled us forward in our relationship with the campus, because we had to book that room every semester, and we didn't know until the semester started if we'd have it. And so, you know, we're going through it, and I get an email from the Student Union building office one day saying, you know, you guys have the room booked for next Tuesday, but I've got this on-campus group, the Students of Color Society, and they thought they had it for next Tuesday for this big event they're doing, celebrating the Day to End Racism. It's like a yearly world event, and we're wondering if you'll be willing to give up your space. And now this was like, we didn't have time. We didn't have an evening to tell people. We didn't have, you know, so it was like send out an email maybe, you know. And so at first I was like, you have that feeling like no, this is ours. This is our space. But that's totally not of God, because our whole mission to be there was to serve and bless the campus. And so as soon as I was kind of able to get over that selfish ambition, I realized, wow, what an opportunity. So we blasted the emails, we sent out the word of mouth to our people, and we gave them the space, but we also got a hold of the organizers and said, can we serve? Like, can we, like, we'll bring coffee, we'll bring goodies.
Yes.
And so we showed up.
So even over and above that, it's like, we want to help you out.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is why we're here. Yeah.
Does it feel really natural, like working together and just being in ministry together?
Yeah, I mean, I've never had a lead pastor before, so
I don't
compare it to. But we've always been like connected. Just growing up, like he was always coming to my sports, and he was my coach in baseball, and you know.
Come on, get in there, Dave.
Yeah. He didn't really know what he was doing. He's there, right? He's always there.
That's awesome.
And so that, you know,
I always felt that way about my dad too.
Yeah.
So, you know, just always having that connection and working together in whatever kind of ways growing up, and throwing the ball in the backyard, whatever it was, right? So it's a natural continuance of just doing stuff together.
Yeah.
And this is a calling, and it's a job. And so doing that together, just, it does feel normal and natural.
Okay, so it's clear you are father, son in ministry. Talk to us a little bit about transition and just generations. So what does that look like? What's your heart for that?
I think one of my roles as a lead pastor, and I'm almost 61 now, is to prepare the next generation to take my place. And part of what happens to guys my age sometimes is we try to hang on too long. And God has really talked to me about how can I make sure that the young guys take over the church, because I won't be here forever, and I know that. And so how do I make sure that they are ready for the next generation? So one of the things God has really talked to me about is preparing them, trying to build into them, mentoring them, equipping them. You can go to seminary, Bible college, and all of that, and you get the theory, but the practical has to happen in the local church, I think. And so some of the things is just one-on-one stuff, sitting down. We spend a lot of time talking about ministry, talking about how to do ministry. But one of the other things that I think is just so valuable is giving the next generation opportunity to do significant things. The church that he will lead in the future will be quite different than the church that I am leading in the present and that I have led in the past. And that's okay, and that has to be okay with my generation. I don't want the church 10 years, 20 years from now to look like it does today. I want it to look better than today. And while there are so many great things about the church, and I'm talking a broad range, there's so many great things about what's happening in the church today. I think that there can be even greater things that can happen in the church in his generation.
I think one of the things you talked about in the past that I've really appreciated too is that it's one thing to pass the church on, but it'd be easy for my generation to say, well, we don't want what you're giving us, right? Because we don't want to do church that way. But I think one thing that's really worked in our relationship is there's been a lot of passing on already. So it's not like, okay, I'm going to do this and you get ready to do it later.
Right.
It's like, here, I'm starting to give you some things now so that it gets that younger flavor. It gets that next generation started now, so that when it is passed on, whether it's to me or someone else, then it's something that we want to receive and we want to lead and we want to continue to build forward.
It's so cool to hear you speak. I mean, we hear a lot about mentorship in the church, and you know, I'm familiar with so many conversations that I'll have with people that are saying, you know, I just want to mentor. I want to mentor some young person. Just get that person. When am I going to get this opportunity to have some young person come up? Man, I can mentor them really, really well. But that's not what I'm hearing from you. What I'm hearing from you is, I just want to support them. I just want to encourage them. I want to give them an opportunity to be able to do things in the way that they're feeling led to do them. And that's a whole different way of mentorship, isn't it?
And it means support. It means me stretching beyond where I'm always comfortable. But it also means having the confidence in the next generation that they can carry it, and they can, and I know they can.
Yeah.
You know, we talk a lot about the next generation, sometimes in a disparaging way, but the reality is that there are some great and bright shining lights that we as the older leaders will pass the church on to. I will not pass the church on to somebody who's 60 years old. I will probably pass it on to somebody who's closer to Dave's age. Right. You know, either Dave or someone like him.
Yeah.
And so this is the challenge for us. We did church our way already. We had our turn. We're having our turn. But they need their turn. And they need to be able to do it the way God is calling them to do it, and with the gifts and abilities that God has given them. And it will be with a lot more technology, and it will be with a lot different style, and it'll be in blue jeans and a golf shirt rather than in a suit and tie, and it'll look totally different. But that's the beautiful thing about it, is that it can look totally different and still be the church.
That's right. I think another thing, just picking up on, is there seems to be a real respect that you have for the older generation and the generation of just being able to be supported and to have a place where you can do ministry, but also respect that there's different ways of doing things and ways of learning.
Yeah, it's really easy for a young person to come into a church and especially straight out of Bible school, and the passion is amazing, but feeling like, well, I'm going to be the savior of this church. And it's like, hold on a second, there's history, there's a lot of value in what has gone before. And so if you're going to bring change, it has to come through deliberate action over long periods of time in a loving way, not just through the whip of young passion that says, no, this is how we're doing it. And so I think it's helpful that I grew up in the church, and so a lot of our older members I've known for 24 years, and they've known me, which is kind of weird. I was 4 when they showed up, and they were my Sunday school teachers and stuff, and now I'm their pastor, and so it's cool too. It's cool.
And it has to be gifting. If I look at the difference between us, and we are different. He is very much a teacher, or theologian. I say he's the theologian and I'm the encourager, the pastor. And he loves the theology side of it, and I love the encouraging, supporting. You know, my life verse has kind of been, God has not given me authority to tear you down, but to build you up. And so that's kind of been my gifting in my area.
I'm not very encouraging. You know what's funny though, having my dad as my boss, is in the first couple months that I was working there, I went through this crisis, like, what do I call him? Yeah. Right? Like, that's right. Like when we're one-on-one, it's dad, right? But when I'm on stage talking about him, do I say dad? Because it's not real professional, but it's also, if people don't know that we're related, they don't know.
Because not everybody does.
They don't know who I'm talking about. And so I call him, in public, I call him Pastor Al, which at first was kind of awkward, but I'm used to it. But it gets really weird, whereas like last week, where I say something like, Pastor Al and my mom are on holidays together. Oh, yeah. They were just on a bike trip together. Exactly. So it's odd, but it's, Yeah.
Oh, yes! Another episode going home. Thank you, Pastor Dave, Pastor Al. This has been so great. Just hearing separate stories, but also your stories together in ministry. God is so good. I have one last question. Where are you going?
We're going home.